Hi everyone, it's Tony, the beardless one from 2 Copper Pieces, and in this video I'm going to show you a few ways to up-level the miniatures you've painted, including eyes. Yeah, getting the eyes right can really make the difference. Otherwise, awkward. Well, I've got some tips for you in your painting that can make your eyes and other details a whole lot easier to paint. As ever, you can see exactly what I'm doing in the opening montage, so if you feel that's enough for you, feel free to drop out when the credits roll, and if you feel so inclined, you could hit the like and subscribe button on the way out, but you'll be missing out on some sweet tips later in the video. The eyes part is right at the end too. Sorry everyone. Right, enjoy the montage, and I'll see you after the credits. Okay, so when you're batch painting minis like this, what I like to do is actually decide which minis need a bit of extra attention and which ones are fine as they are. Painting carefully the way that we have is a good way to cut out the need for lots of extra attention, but sometimes you might want to add a highlight here or there, or add a specific detail that you had left out from the batch painting. First up, we have these green-skinned orcs. Now the skin tone worked great on most of the goblins, but on some of the orcs they were left looking a bit patchy and smeared, so an easy way to improve this is with a green wash, as I showed you a little bit earlier. Any wash would do really, as it will tone down the colour and pull in the cracks, and add a great filter over the whole mini, bringing it all together, but I've opted for green here because I don't want to alter the original style too much. As I'm doing it to a couple of orcs, I'm going to apply the same filter to all of them, even though I think some of them turned out a lot better, just for the sake of consistency and uniformity, as this is for a board game. Next on the cards are the mummies, which I think look great as they are, but you can see these tiny red runes on some of their bandages in the art, so we'll be adding that. With a tiny dip of the tip in some thin red speed paint, we can easily scratch in some red lines and shapes. If it looks like I'm doing this super quickly and efficiently, it's partly because I've sped up the video, and partly because I'm just making up shapes as I go along. It won't matter that much, but if someone picks up the mini and looks more closely, they'll be wowed by the attention to detail. A really light touch with a really thin tip is going to make a big difference here. After that are these abominations, already looking the part really, but they have these starfish and barnacles all over them that I want to draw attention to. To make sure they take the colour well, I've painted them white again first, to give them a bit more vibrancy. You saw me there looking up colours of starfish on my phone, and as there are 2 starfish on each model, I've decided for a bit of variance to paint them alternating blues, reds and oranges, so no mini has exactly the same colours in the same places. This monster is so freakish and unique, they don't need a persistent colour tone across all 3 of them to look like one group, so it's a nice chance for a bit of variety in this box set. Now back to these orcs, and in the arch you'll see this one has some red paint or blood on its head and arms, which gives it that little je ne sais quoi. That's right, I speak French, and what the French call les incompetents. Unlike the starfish, I'm not underpainting these areas white because I want it to look a bit more blended with the rest of the model. Again, the speed paints are great for this as they are translucent, but not as thin as a wash. So they are more than a filter, but don't stand out too much. If I were using regular acrylic paint, I would want to wash over this afterwards, or maybe thin them down with a medium. But there's no need to do that with speed paints, it's already done. Although the art only shows one orc, I figure for consistency here, all kinds of orcs here should have a similar blood design. You'll have noticed as I hold the minis that I'm holding the mini in one hand, my brush in the other, and I'm bracing my hands together using my little finger and my ring finger on each hand. That steadies my hand and allows for a lot of control. I think you should give it a try, and if that doesn't work for you, maybe find your own painting positions that do work for you and allow you to stay steady. Here I'm highlighting the previously described non-metallic parts of the models, like the weapons and the armor, except I'm highlighting them with a bit of metallic paint. Is that cheating? I don't think so. A bit of sparkle on the edges can really make these parts pop without overdoing it. Sometimes I find metallic paint can jar with the aesthetic of the models, or something less pretentious to say. Most of the sculpts in the box are great, but the sword on the elf hero is pretty poor. It's rounded and chunky like an inflatable balloon sword, so you'll see me using some layers of lighter silver along the edges and leaving the center dark to create the illusion of an angular blade. Here I found some old rub and buff and switched to that. This is actually a polish, but try brushing this on the edges of metal. It's really effective. Obviously edges of metal, or things that are supposed to be metal. But I think it's actually used for polishing metal as well. You just need the tiniest bit to make the metal stand out, but you have to be a little careful not to overdo it. This can also act as a metallic filter over colors. If you're painting a heavily armored piece, if you really kind of rub it into the piece that you're painting. It comes in gold, silver and bronze and can be a real time saver for highlighting metallics. Here we go, the eyes, the dreaded eyes. Actually, not as hard, although it took me about 3 years to find a way of doing eyes that didn't look terrible. For a while I just didn't paint them. I let the washes do its thing, secure in the knowledge no one will really look that closely, but eventually I wanted to step it up, and I'm convinced had I been shown this method or some of these ways or some of these tips, I could have got to eye painting a lot sooner. First, you'll want to look really closely at the models and decide if the pupils need a bit of whitening or not. For a glowing eye, like on the skeletons or dread warriors, you'll definitely need to get some white in there. Second, you'll need a very pointed tip on your brush, and that's where the old palm twist comes in handy. And generally a smaller brush works a lot better, and I switched to a smaller one later, but they don't need to be ridiculously small and thin as long as you can get a nice tip on it. Crucially, as with all of the highlights, you need to just dip the tip. And in this case, I'd say just the tip of the tip. You don't want to go bristles deep here, or things will get messy. Ooh, sorry about that one. Find a way to brace your hands as you hold the mini as you carefully paint on the white or the pupil itself. Another tip, rather than moving the brush, hold the brush still and move the mini toward the painted tip of the brush. If you have a big batch to paint up like this, don't shy away from the challenge of the eyes. This is your chance to practice, and the more you practice, the better you will get. And if you're just starting out in this hobby, you've painted some great minis, don't worry about messing up here. It's your chance to perfect your skills. Just go for it, because you will figure out what works for you. All of these tips are all well and good, but they might not work for everyone, so you've really got to find out what works best for you. As a final tip, I suggest you have a second brush ready to hand, loaded with water. If you make a mistake you're not happy with, switch brushes, wash it off ASAP, then soak up the excess water with a drier brush before you start again. If you accidentally get paint around the eye, just try wiping it off with your thumb first before doing the wet brush trick. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope it's been useful. Let me know in the comments if you want another basing tips video next, or another painting tips video, or if I've said something you fundamentally hate and have to let me know. Tell me that as well, it all helps. Until next time, bye!